Hiring qualified personnel, whether full or part-time. The Miller Media Group wants to help you, the employer, to find the candidates you're looking for. That's why we've created IllinoisJobPost.com. That's IllinoisJobPost.com. This website is part of a broad radio and internet employment campaign available through the Miller Media Group. Contact your account manager or email sales@randyradio.com for more information. IllinoisJobPost.com is where we put the power of radio and the internet to attract prospective candidates.
Let's swing open the farm gate together every day on WHOW. I'm Stu Ellis, your host of the long-running agriculture feature called The Farm Gate. I bring the latest news and information on where agriculture is and where it's going to WHOW Ag listeners several times a day. From tariffs to treaties, from the Board of Trade to the running board on your truck, I cover Central Illinois agriculture every day on The Farm Gate. Hear it all on WHOW's many platforms, on the radio or online. Join me, Stu Ellis, for The Farm Gate.
You're from the Central Illinois, WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHW Morning Show is streaming to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in this segment of the morning show is Mrs. Mary Vogt. She is the superintendent of Bement Schools. Mrs. Vogt, how are you today?
Good morning, Seth. I'm great. How are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for asking, and thanks for making time for us as always. And I know, Mrs. Vogt, that we're going to talk a little bit about continuing the conversation about the impacts of COVID on our kids, particularly, we'll maybe get into some of the academic things, but, a lot of kids are struggling emotionally, mentally, and even continuing the academic piece like we talked about. But I know you were at a conference over the weekend and really came back invigorated and reinvigorated for education and leadership and those sorts of things. And that's going to tie into a little bit of our conversation today. So tell us about your experience and how you feel that is relating to this topic we're talking about this morning.
Thanks, Seth. I appreciate the opportunity. I am part of a cohort called Elevate, and it's through the Illinois Association of School Administrators. And this is the first ever group of its kind. It was an application process, and they selected 20 female superintendents from throughout the state of Illinois. And when I say throughout, I mean the very southern tip to the very northern, northwest corner, everywhere in between. And school districts from less than 200 students to over 12,000 students. So just a variety of experiences, a variety of backgrounds. I'm there as a first-year superintendent, and then we have people who've been in the superintendency for 18, 20 years who are nearing retirement. So just a really great cross-section of female leaders coming together and learning that as female leaders, it's okay for us to be different. We work in education that is predominantly female in the classrooms, but then when you get into the leadership roles, about 25% of superintendents are female. So there's quite a switch in the numbers. And for years, there's been that thought process of, as a female leader, I need to fit into the male-dominated role and how it's been defined. And what I really appreciated learning this weekend was, we're all in this together. Men and women are wired differently. Just some of the biological differences between men and women, it doesn't make one gender better than another. We have gifts that we can all bring to the table. So that was very exciting. This group, it just started this weekend, and we'll meet 8 weekends over the next 2 years. On Friday, one of our speakers via Zoom was a marketing person for M&Ms, and her talking about some of her campaigns and some of the struggles that she has being female, and she is young. Mm-hmm. So just taking some of those immediate biases that we have and putting those aside and learning how to listen and respect each other. And Seth, it's so interesting. I think about a quote that I heard, that females hit their peak of self-confidence at 9 years old.
Wow.
9 years old.
Holy cow.
And then the self-confidence starts going down. And it is because as a gender, we are typically very competitive with each other. We put each other down and hold grudges. I loved this statement that I heard as well. It's like when you hold a grudge against somebody, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other guy to die. But females biologically hold grudges more so than men do. Men can, say their piece and disagree and then move on. And women just aren't programmed that way. Even though there are some challenges, there are some things that, as women, we do, I may say, we need to get over ourselves sometimes and realize, we need to work together. We need to be there to support each other and not tear each other down. Because one of the things we talked about was that social emotional piece again that keeps coming up now post-COVID, and how women are able to see the social emotional need differently than men do. And so having female leaders in schools in the age of post-COVID and being able to recognize that emotional support that students need. Not that men don't recognize it, but men and women see it differently. So that really came to light for me a few weeks ago. Just here in Bement, we had, we have one class per grade level. So these kids are together, sometimes from preschool all the way through senior year. And before COVID, they knew the rules of school. They knew what school looked like. And then all of a sudden we went into this COVID era where what we knew school as completely changed. And at school was different. And, they did not get that interpersonal piece of education that is so important along with the academics. And now we've come back and, we're redefining what school looks like after COVID, without that consideration, just from some of the legislators and lawmakers that, we're trying to help our kids become acclimated to school again, but yet the academic expectations have not changed. So, we're trying to make up that learning loss. We're trying to make up for the lack of, interaction that the kids had over the last couple of years while being held to the same standards we were pre-COVID for our academics. So,
sorry, I didn't. No. Again, our guest is Mrs. Mary Vogt. She's the superintendent of Bement Schools. We were talking off the air a little bit, Mrs. Vogt, about the transition back to school. And you mentioned keeping those same standards academically. For a lot of the things we'll talk about here in the next few minutes, many of these problems were, kind of behind the scenes happening, a little bit out of the public eye. And then, I feel like, and specifically, when I say that, I particularly mean kids were on devices, very, very, a lot of time away from the school setting, and social media was becoming a big issue, whether it was impacting the school day or it was impacting a student away from the school setting, and maybe it would spill into the school day. I feel like COVID manifested that into a big problem because we didn't have school for a whole quarter, and there was all that time for students to be on their devices and be on social media, and it created a behavior where, maybe they felt, or they developed a behavior where they didn't have to socialize face to face. Everything was digital. And then you talked about when they came back, they're 6 feet apart. They're, they're wearing masks. They're wearing face masks. Then this year you strip all of that away. Everyone can be as close in proximity as they were before. And, for a year and a half, 2 years there, we had all this separation, and all of a sudden we're put back into a normal social setting that is the school day, and we don't know how to handle it.
Absolutely. And Seth, when you talk about devices and social media, I mean, we both know it is so easy to sit behind your keyboard and make comments that you would never say to a person's face.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is, not everyone, but some students are still making those comments via social media, you know, those keyboard warriors, I call them.
Uh-huh.
But then to come to school and face those people the next day. It's like they're not thinking through the consequences of their actions. So while we were home for COVID, they could make the mean comments and inappropriate statements and still not have to see the person face to face.
And that really dehumanizes a person. You know,
Yeah.
It's not a person. It's not a friend you see at school. It's a name and a picture on a screen in front of you, and that's all you see of that person. And then when they get, you know, and I think that you talked about, you wouldn't say those things to that person face to face. I think we can stop saying that, because you've got a lot of people that when they see that person at school, they will say those things and worse to their face, because it's, you know, we've just desensitized ourselves to the way we view people as a person, rather than, or you know, we view people as a name and a picture on a screen, rather than as a person we see in the hallway, and a, you know, person with feelings, and, you know, that deserves respect and all those things.
You are absolutely right. Yes, there are some things said that I cannot even imagine what makes a person think it is okay to utter those words out loud to another person.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Mrs. Vogt, let's pause the conversation there and maybe take it a step further and talk about how that is playing itself out in the hallways of Bement schools, and, you know, perhaps the conversations that it's led to with your peers, and, you know, how you maybe overcome some of these things, and, you know, try to teach lessons that we all lost during COVID and those sorts of things. In the meantime, where do folks go to learn about all things Bement schools?
They should go to www.bement.k12.il.us.
Very good. Again, that is Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools, my guest on the phone. More to come with her on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
MR Systems Wireless is your local internet provider for Clinton and surrounding area. They have the products you want and the local service you deserve. MR Systems Wireless Internet service for home or business includes unlimited data, unlimited streaming, and unlimited calling. Plans start at just $48 a month, and get a free Roku 4 lease with our media packages. Get the speed you need with MR Systems Wireless. Call them at 935-2100. That's 935-2100 for MR Systems Wireless.
Your own home without the maintenance. If you're 55 or better, a beautiful Liberty Village villa could be yours. This is Erin, and I invite you to come take a tour of our move-in ready villa. Click the Liberty Village icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
Simply the finest.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
At Central Illinois Outdoors, with me, Jared White, we want you to be a part of the program as well via the Archer's Alley Catch of the Week. Each week, we'll select one of your pictures submitted at CentralIllinoisOutdoors.com and invite you to tell your story of the great outdoors. We're looking for your kid's first catch or even your first big buck. There's a simple, easy form you can fill out on your phone or computer at CentralIllinoisOutdoors.com. Send us your story, send us your pic. CentralIllinoisOutdoors.com and the Catch of the Week, brought to you by Archer's Alley, North 22nd Street, in Decatur.
Hey, this is Todd Gleason from Illinois Extension here with a time change for our daily market report on WHOW. You can now catch our daily review of the commodity markets at 5:06 on all of WHOW's many platforms. You'll still hear all of our commodity analysts and weather professionals each afternoon, but at a brand new time. And you'll still hear the weekly wrap-up of the commodity markets right here on WHOW when Commodity Week airs Saturdays at 8:30 a.m. Remember the time change for the daily closing market report on WHOW at our new time, 5:06 p.m. weekdays.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Once again, good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Again, Mrs. Mary Vogt is the superintendent of Bement Schools, my guest on the phone here for this morning. And Mrs. Vogt, as we catch up here for this morning, we were talking in that first segment about, the challenges of youth today and the social media and things that are happening on social media, and whether they carry into the school day or maybe they start in the school day and carry outside the school walls. What does that look like in your school district? What does this issue look like specifically for Bement schools?
So for Bement schools, we try to make sure that the students know when they're facing a challenging situation, or if they find themselves the target of somebody's comments, we try to make sure they know, get yourself out of that situation. There are adults in the building who you can go to, who you can talk to, who will help you through those situations. We have high school guidance counselors, we have a district-wide social worker, but then also the teachers, the building principals, myself, just trying to make sure that our students are aware there is somebody here for you. Mm-hmm. And we don't want you to feel like you're experiencing any of this on your own. We are here for you. We will listen to you. And teaching kids how to be self-aware, teaching them that, when you feel this way, instead of lashing out, here are some other things you can do. Mm-hmm. Ask to just go to the bathroom, ask to get a drink, ask to go talk with somebody, mm-hmm. but trying to teach the skills of how to be self-aware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just that pause that, for some of us, that was ingrained in us as, when we were little, just take a pause, think for a second before you say something or act, and those sorts of things. It's, somewhat of a lost coping mechanism for sure. And I've heard it best described, on social media before, if you've got a tweet or a Facebook post where you're just venting, and, instead of hitting send right away, erase it, maybe copy it and, cut it out, and then you can paste it right back, but just take 5 minutes. And if 5 minutes later you still want to hit send, by all means do it, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So
that's without a doubt, for sure.
When it comes to making students aware, how do you do that? I mean, that's, particularly as kids get older, that's got to be a difficult skill and, issue to take up with them. How do you do that?
We do, like I said, we have a social worker, and so her role isn't just reactive when a situation comes up. It's also very proactive, and mm-hmm. going into classrooms and teaching those social skills and making herself familiar with the students so that they know she is a resource who they can rely on. And then also, we had a situation a few weeks ago with one particular group of students who just, they had really just gotten on each other's nerves. And, the social worker and the building principal were both handling a situation. And so I stepped in and talked with the students and just pointing out to them, you all at this point are like brothers and sisters. You've been together since preschool, and you're treating each other like brothers and sisters at school, but yet you all come from different backgrounds, mm-hmm. and your families handle situations differently. And so you're bringing that background experience to the table, but your peers aren't actually your brothers and sisters, and they don't know your family history. And so just trying to help them understand and continually spreading the word that, go to your teacher, go to, the playground supervisor, go to somebody. And if you just need to vent, say, hey, I don't need you to fix anything right now, but I've got to talk about this and get it off your chest, because I shared this mind-blowing concept for them that other school-aged kids from 3 to 18, they're not going to keep your secrets. Mm-hmm. They're just not. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen. So don't vent to somebody in your class because as much as you want to believe they will keep your secret, their brains just aren't there yet. They're not going to.
Yeah.
So just trying to help them, again, be self-aware and know who they can turn to.
Now, you were telling me that you've, as superintendent, have seen kind of an unusual trend in that you've got students coming to you. Normally, we were talking in the break, going through high school, I didn't know who my superintendent was, and sounds like similar situation for you, but students know who you are. Why is that important for you?
I feel like it's important because what I told a group of high schoolers, I'm like, I'm a person too. I here is who I was before I was a superintendent. I was the kid who, through grade school and middle school, my family had the government cheese, and I was on free lunches. And when I was 18, youngest of 4 girls, my dad left, and I was the stereotypical, like, at-risk kid who should not be in the role that I am in today. And I was determined not to let any of those barriers hold me back. And I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I knew I wanted to make a difference in kids' lives. So in the fall, my high school principal was out for a couple of weeks, and I did my best to step in and be superintendent and high school principal. I can't say that I did both jobs at the same time well, but things came out of that experience. And I was able to connect with some of our high school students, and since some of our middle school and elementary students, just depending on circumstances. But I have kids who will ask their teacher if they can come to me because they can feel that they're getting frustrated in a situation in class and just want to come and talk through it. And I'm very clear with them that, their teacher has to know where they are. They need a pass. They can't just ask to go to the bathroom and all of a sudden show up here.
Right.
And there is a time limit to it, because I don't want kids to feel like they can just come and, I'm going to go hang out with the superintendent for a while and not do my work. So setting the boundaries with them, but also letting them know that they are going to be heard.
Well, it's the boundaries. I mean, goodness, that is a term that kids don't know very much, but they need those boundaries. And perhaps if they had those in other aspects of their life, things would be a little better. But again, that's more of a conversation for another day. That kind of goes deep into the psychology of kids and all of that stuff. Mrs. Vogt, I hate to do this to you. I have to let you go for the morning. Again, where do folks go for all things Bement schools?
www.bement.k12.il.us.
That is Mrs. Mary Vogt, Superintendent of Bement Schools, my guest on the phone. The morning show this morning, streaming to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance.
WHOW.